Talk. Talk. Talk to me Tuesday.
Welcome to Talk to Me Tuesday on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Mari B, and today we have a special show. Before I let you know what we're going to talk about today, a lot of us have been glued to our TV in the last year and a half. We're probably still glued to our TV. And with that, there's a lot of well-known shows that we all watch every week on the episode. We don't want to miss it. We don't want to make sure we miss any good details. But on today's show, we actually have a special guest who is actually on a well-known show that you may have watched, that your family and friends may have watched. So the show that we're going to talk about today that you may have watched is Hell's Kitchen. So we'd like to introduce to you Chef Emily Hersh, who was the top 7 finalists on season 20 of Hell's Kitchen. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very pumped to be here and to be talking with you today.
We are so excited to talk to you today. I literally got chills just doing that introduction because, I got to watch some of your episodes too. And it's surreal to have you on our show today and really talk about your experience. So we're super happy and excited to have you today. So now I know for those of us and, our viewers that may have watched the show or may have not, Chef Emily, I want you to explain to us exactly what this show is about.
Yeah, sure. So Hell's Kitchen, been on the air for about 20 years now. Great. So the show that I participated in was the 20th season. It's called Hell's Kitchen Young Guns. It's a special spinoff of what Hell's Kitchen usually is. So the original Hell's Kitchen you might have watched before is a group of 18 or 19 chefs all competing to get the title of a head chef position at one of Gordon Ramsay's restaurants. And I think it's also, there's a cash prize, but that's another thing that a lot of people, that's a very important thing. But so the competition comprises of, there are different challenges that you do at the beginning of the episode. They can be individual and they can be group. And then towards the end of the episode, which is kind of like the most important part, is there's a mock dinner service. So if you've ever been in a kitchen and you've ever seen chefs cooking behind the kitchen or on the line is what we call it, that's basically what we're doing. And at first we're split up into girls versus boys, red team and blue team. Mm-hmm. And then as the show progresses, he kind of switches up the teams a little bit. So you start off as a team, you end as hopefully the head chef of one of Gordon Ramsay's restaurants, and it's known to be very, very intense, very, very stressful. There's a lot of cussing. So I had to apologize to my grandma that I said the F word a couple times, but it's the kitchen. You're allowed to do it. But yeah, and then the season I competed in was Hell's Kitchen Young Guns. So it was, instead of groups of very seasoned chefs who are already executive chefs or have their own restaurant or something like that, it was 18 chefs who are under the age of 24. So it was a bunch of babies, still learning, still had a lot to learn. I was 22 at the time. The show was filmed 2 years ago. So just imagine a babier version of me and 17 other chefs cooking for Gordon Ramsay. And it already makes me like stressed. And I 2 years ago. So if that helps and it's on Hulu now. So we just finished the show last week.
Nice.
All the seasons are on Hulu. So it's a really good binge watch too.
Nice. So definitely you guys need to binge watch it. So look, I want to hear more about the show experience and some of that, high paced environment. I mean, a lot of cussing, getting to know your competitors and what you felt. I'm dying to know more about that. But before we get started, I want to know a little bit about yourself. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am 25 now, born and raised in Texas, San Antonio. So I am a true Texas girl, love my barbecue. However, I found a plant-based diet about 4 years ago. So I am a plant-based chef. I specialize in cooking vegetables, vegan and vegetarian cuisine, sometimes gluten-free. And I found that through a negative relationship with food I had as a result of being a dancer. So I was a dancer way before I was a chef. That was my first passion. I danced for about 21 years. About 20 years, and loved it. It was my identity. I made it up to the collegiate level, went to the University of Texas at Austin, and just found that it wasn't fitting my lifestyle, and it was a very eye-opening experience for me. And that was kind of the first time that I realized that, oh, wow, this might not be my identity anymore. And how can I find an identity that is also going to be healing to me? Mm-hmm. And so I was able to find this amazing plant-based lifestyle. And through research and cooking and just finding love for food again, I grew a new passion. I grew a new identity. And I became so passionate about it that I wanted to do it for a living. So
nice.
Culinary school after, and then the rest is history with Hell's Kitchen. And yeah, so I'm very lucky that I found something through struggle and through hardship that I can help others with in my career. I feel very, very lucky and privileged to have gone through that, because I know everybody goes through hard times. And I'm thankful that my hard time led me to something great like Hell's Kitchen and like helping other young women and men across the world.
Yeah, I think that's great. And look, thank you for sharing that. I think it's very interesting on what got you into cooking first and foremost. And then from there began another journey, right? That you're living in it now. And I think it's super exciting to kind of hear this journey and where it's taking you and where it's going to take you. And like you said, you were on the Young Gun show, but I could see why. You are a young gun, but you're full of energy, full of love, and I love it. So let's talk a little bit about the schooling that you did. Once you got into the cooking from your experience from dance, tell us about the accreditation that you got and what school you went to.
Yeah, so I had a dream always growing up that I would go to New York City. And eventually, a long time ago, it was to go to grad school. But then after college, I was like, oh, God, I can't do another 3 years of like original grad, like, you know, what grad school is. So once I found culinary school and I found that was my passion, it was very easy to choose to learn in New York City. And so I learned at this culinary school called the Natural Gourmet Institute. It is a culinary school that is now part of ICE, so Institute of Culinary Education, I think, and it's also still in Manhattan. But when I went, it was a very baby boutique, very family-oriented culinary school, which I loved. Coming from a really big college, going to a small school was awesome. Yeah. It was 85% plant-based, so it was mostly plant-based. It was cooking for health. We learned a lot about like Ayurveda, which is a healthful practice from Asia. We learned about Chinese medicine. We learned about all of the cool, like hippie things that you'd love if you're somebody like me and you're a hippie vegetarian. So it was really cool because coming from an experience of healing myself with food and learning that there's so much more to that, and there are people who have kind of cracked the code on this with food and have kind of shared the same passions as I did, was amazing. And it was a 6-month intensive. So it wasn't like a regular culinary school where you would do 2 to 4 years. Mm-hmm. It was very much intense, but a short period of time. And I really enjoyed that because culinary school is just part of your education. There's so much that comes that chefs can learn from after. So it was a great, great experience. I really enjoyed it.
Well, when you say intensive, it sounds like everything got, intensified in a short period of time, from techniques for type of, foods to use and all of that, which I think that's very interesting. We're going to hear a little bit more about that. But right after your culinary school, did you tell us about how you got the opportunity to be on the show? Tell us what even got you interested in applying.
Oh my gosh. It's actually a really funny story. So after culinary school, after I graduated, I interned at this restaurant called Dirt Candy, and it's a vegetarian restaurant on the Lower East Side. And so did not think I was going to be a restaurant chef. I wanted to be a private chef or do something, cooking meals for people at home. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to be a restaurant chef. And so I end up interning at a restaurant, end up getting a job offer at a restaurant. So of course I end up being a line cook, and I loved it.
Yeah.
But two months into the job, this is my first job given, I get a LinkedIn message from a recruiter that's saying, "Oh, we're recruiting for Hell's Kitchen. We found your profile. Would you like to apply?" And my first thought, all right, this is a scam. I have no idea why they would want to pick me.
Yeah.
Given I didn't know that it was the Young Guns show. So I thought that they were going to be putting me with 45-year-old executive chefs, which I still don't think that I could handle to this day.
Yeah.
So thought it was a scam at first. That's how they found me. I never really watched Hell's Kitchen before that.
Uh-huh.
I knew of it. Of course, I knew of Gordon Ramsay. I watched his other shows. But yeah, so we went through a couple interviews, and then I remember they flew me up to LA for the final one. And I was sitting in my hotel room for a little bit. So I called my mom, and I'm like, "Mom, I really think this is a scam. Like, I feel like they're going to kidnap me." But that, I'm a young kid. I don't have any self-confidence of how I could compete in a television show. So luckily it was not a scam. Ended up getting casted for the show. But yeah, 2 months into it. And then I think we waited a couple more months before we flew out to Vegas to film. So I had only been cooking for about 4 months before all of this started.
Wow.
Which was just a big thing, a big mental block to get over, to be able to perform.
Yeah, literally. Well, that's where your experience came from, number one. And then the experience came with the passion, which is cooking. And everything was kind of full circle here. So I want to know a little bit more about your experience on how you got selected to be on the show. So did you have to cook anything? Was it just interview based? Tell us a little bit about, if you can, the details before you got selected. And what did they tell you when they said you've been selected?
Yeah. So I feel like with any TV show, they look for skills, but they also look for personality. And I think my story kind of spoke. There's a larger reason why I would want to do a show.
Yeah.
So I think that everybody on the show had some sort of amazing reason why they were chefs. And they just had a passion. And I think that's the main reason why I was chosen, and why all of the other talented chefs were chosen, is the people who interview you, they could feel it. They could feel it through the interviews. They could feel it through the pictures of food that you sent them. We did have to send, our signature dishes over, pictures of food that we've cooked before. Of course, pictures of us, see if we're okay for the television show, and, we are who we say we are. But yeah, there's a lot that went into the audition process. It was very drawn out. I don't know if that's how it is for every other show, but I think the bottom line is that I was able to be myself and really show my passion for food and for helping others. And so that's the main reason why I would want to do the show. To be honest, I didn't want to be a executive chef for a steak restaurant. I mean, I'm a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So I just wanted the experience of being able to cook for Gordon Ramsay and being able to learn from him and spread my message and just meet others. And I always think of it as a third culinary school. I had my first culinary school, I had my restaurant experience, my first restaurant experience, and then Hell's Kitchen, which was the hardest cooking boot camp ever. So.
Yeah. Well, look, we're excited that you got that experience. I would like to hear a little bit more here. So I want to go back right when your experience started on Hell's Kitchen, right? So we're talking season 20. First of all, that's monumental. Season 20, right? That's one to remember. A lot of stuff happened on 2020. A lot of stuff happened. So it's a monumental year, however you want to slice it and dice it. But for those that are watching, talk to us about how you felt for the first time when you walked in Las Vegas into the production and set and everything. I want to hear all your emotions. If you remember certain smells or certain, visions, I kind of want to hear, walk us through your experience.
Yeah. So it's crazy because I had been going to Vegas for as long as I can remember because my parents are obsessed with Vegas. So even as a little girl, we would go and we would go shopping, and so I was very familiar with Vegas, but it was just different this time around, because we were filming for a television show. So we get to the hotel a couple days earlier to just prepare and get everything situated. And I had about 20 cookbooks that they all took from me. Not allowed to have those. Took away like phones, wallets, everything. So you're kind of just isolated for this time in your hotel room, not being able to see Vegas, not being able to meet anybody. And so the first moment that I started seeing other contestants was we got up onto a party bus, and one by one, the new contestant came in. And that's when I first found out that it was all younger chefs. And so I was about the third one to get on the bus, and it was just like a huge relief seeing other young people who were in the same position as me. And so at that moment, I was very, very nervous because, of course, when you're isolated, you can get in your head. But when you're surrounded by this energy and this passion, it was just surprisingly easy to tap into the positive excitement and passion that is going to happen on the show. It is also very easy to get in your head, and I know that there were some people who did and who had a negative experience, but I was very blessed to be able to really stay true to myself the whole time and feel like I could really enjoy every part of it. So like the first time we saw Gordon Ramsay was, they took us into the restaurant, and when you go in the restaurant, it's a set, but when you go in the restaurant, you go into this museum that they made for us for 20 seasons, and we just get to see all of the past contestants and just everything that has been done before us. And it was just like a big wave of feeling grateful, I think, especially through the hardship. I had just come out of my hardships with dance very, very immediately. And so being able to see the benefits of working towards a new passion was just one of the greatest feelings that I could ever feel. And of course, you cry when you see Gordon Ramsay, because you just do. So when I first saw him, he just is like this ethereal being. Yeah. They surprised us. They said they were going to show us a documentary on Hell's Kitchen, and there are big curtains. And they opened the curtains, and there's this huge audience, and Gordon Ramsay is at the very back just waiting for us. And it's just like, it's very surreal and it's very emotional. It's like all the feelings. And he also smells really good.
And that's funny, because when you get into something that, is a dream, or you've worked yourself up to, you start seeing it, feeling it, smelling it, it becomes surreal. The emotions start coming out. But then at the same time, you also have to compete to where you're like, okay, this has got to end because we got to get on our competitive mode. So explain to us, what was your experience on the show, on the set? What was the production like? And what was it? How was it different of what was seen on TV and all of that good stuff? So when you walked in, were you just trying to take it all in, or were you like, okay, just going with the flow and the motion of the wave?
I think what I told myself beforehand, because I knew this was going to be very overwhelming, was just try to stay in the moment. Everything's very real. What you see on TV is basically what we went through. All of the emotions, all of the drama. We didn't really have a dramatic season, but there was some drama. It's all very, very real. And I'm really happy that the editing was pretty accurate on how we experienced it, with what my memory was. So yeah, just having to stay in the moment and I'm sorry, the question was how was the production aspect versus what we see on TV? Yeah, very, very much the same. There's just a little bit of technical things that I'm sure you know of as being a host of behind the scenes that you got to do. But it was really cool, and tried not to get overwhelmed by that side of it. I tried to stay in the moment of, okay, this is a boot camp. This is an experience. Just don't look at the cameras. Because that's how Chef Ramsay was. He never looked at the cameras. I remember one time he got mad and he was like, "You think this is a show? This is not. This is real. Like this is a." And we were like, "Okay." He was like, "This
like
is
it is a show."
Yeah, it is a show, but he was like very much into the fact that we should not focus on the cameras. We should focus on us learning from him and us taking ourselves seriously as chefs, which I also really appreciated, because I feel like there are some celebrity chefs who do it just for TV. And he's very much not like that. It felt very mentor-mentee sort of relationship, which was very, very special. And so I forgot about the cameras often, because they're hidden in the kitchen, hidden in the dorms. The only time that we really see them is during challenges, or if we're out doing a reward or punishment, they'll be there. But you forget about it easy. It's very easy to get swept up in all of it.
That's awesome. Well, you definitely took Gordon Ramsay's advice, and I think that's great, so that you can really focus on why you were there, your passion, and all that good stuff. So I want you to walk us through when you went on set and you got to pick your ingredients. Like, was it like a grocery store, or was it like a worldwide grocery store where you had an array of selections that you could choose from? Tell us a little bit about that.
It was like a Disneyland for chefs. All of the ingredients we got to work with were just some ingredients I never even seen before, being so early on in my career. So I would say the challenges are the times where we can just we have our set things we are supposed to cook with, but there's a fridge and there's a produce aisle where we can just pick and choose and add to our challenge dishes that we had to cook. And it was like a kid in the candy store. But for me, it's a kid in the produce store, because I love vegetables. So they're just amazing, amazing products we got to work with. You can tell that it's good budget because they have a lot of good options. And everything just tasted amazing too. And having that, going back home to my New York dorm with minimal ingredients, and you actually have to pay for your ingredients, is a big learning curve after
real life.
Spending weeks on, just having these amazing ingredients given to you. It was so cool.
It became surreal when you had to go back to the real life. So did you ever see something on the produce aisle that you're like, never cooked with this, never seen this, however, you chose to pick it in your dishes? Did you ever explore in that sense?
Yes. Actually, the last episode that I was eliminated on, we had a Cook for Your Life challenge. And being a vegetarian, me and meat are cool, but I don't really know its background. I'm not close friends with it, more acquaintances. So I picked this huge slab of meat to cook with, because at the last challenge was cook for your family, or cook for something that your family inspired you with. My dad is a huge master griller, loves his meat. It's very ironic. But he loves meat. So I was like, okay, well, my last challenge, I'm going to grill a steak. And I just picked the biggest one I could find. And I remembered, I think they show it on TV, I think they were really excited that I messed up on what it was called, but I called it a ribeye. And one of the chefs would correct me. He's like, that's not it. That's actually a porterhouse. And I was like, oh, so there's a lot of animal protein that I had no idea what it was. But with that environment, you just kind of have to be fearless. And so I just picked it, and I still cooked it, and it turned out great. So it's something that I had to learn with, is just be okay with not knowing what things are, because there are a lot of stuff going on in the show that I had no idea what was happening. I just had to go with the flow and learn quickly and learn on my feet. So
not everyone gets the luxury of saying, hey, I'm just going to cook this and see how it comes out. Some of us, I know we could relate at home, that we tried cooking something and it was like, ooh, that wasn't that good. So the fact that it turned out good, that's a blessing. And I know that you're very talented for it to still turn out well, and you've never cooked it. So, I want to kind of talking about those dishes. I want to know a little bit more. So you were, I want to keep saying it, top 7 finalists. So that is awesome. And throughout the show, there's a lot of dishes that you cooked. But which dish, in your opinion, of the whole season was your favorite to cook?
So that's a great question. I think my favorite to cook, there are a lot of dishes on the service side where it's his menu, which was really fun to cook. I'd say for that, the scallops were a really fun thing to learn. But with the challenges, we were able to be creative and present our own food to Chef Ramsay. And so my favorite thing in the world to cook is Asian food. So Asian inspired, Thai, Indian, anything with that big flavor. And so there was an opportunity where I was able to cook curry. And so I made a sweet potato curry, and I was able to present it to Chef Ramsay and another chef who was there. And I think it was Michael Cimarosti. But they tried it, and they never tasted sweet potato curry before. It was a first for them, which is crazy to me because they're these Michelin starred chefs.
Yeah.
That had to be my favorite one, just because I realized that everybody's just learning from one another.
Yeah.
Learning from their perspective of being these meat-centric chefs, amazing and talented. And then they might have learned something from me as being, a younger plant-based chef, trying out new things, and so just to be able to be critiqued by Chef Ramsay at any time was amazing. But that probably was my favorite dish to make.
Well, tell us, what was their reaction?
They loved it. I won the point. So that was good. I was going against another chef, Chef Bryn, and she is amazing with Asian flavors. So I was very proud of myself to beat her on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a good one. That was a good win for me. And I still cook that curry all the time. That's my favorite thing to make.
Nice. So now I want to kind of keep on with the dishes. Which dish was the most challenging for you?
That is a really good question. Probably would have to say the chicken, which is really interesting because chicken seems like it's the easiest thing to cook. But that was the most dramatic protein of the entire season. Everybody undercooked chicken. Like, I feel like every single chef at least undercooked chicken once.
Yeah.
So I remember chef told us something about it, that it's the toughest protein to cook because it has no fat and it's just a breast. Boneless, skinless chicken breast is, I don't know why you would order that at a steak restaurant, but some people want it. So yeah, that was the toughest thing to make. You have to pan sear it for 7 minutes and then cook it in the oven. And then, you can't use a meat thermometer or anything. So you just kind of have to go off your feel. You have to poke it and see if it's completely all the way done. And that was tough. And then of course, bringing it up to him and having that confidence that it's going to be cooked is the toughest thing. So, and when it's undercooked, it's the worst feeling. So that was a tough one. I would also say New York strip is tough because, again, you're going by touch. You're not going by vision of what it looks like. You just have to really use your senses as a chef to have confidence that it's a mid-rare, which is all of the temps we had to do for steaks were mid-rare. And then, of course, chicken was well done. And then I think all the fish, the salmon was mid-rare. And then I think we did a sea bass. I think we might have done sea bass. I'm not sure. But the temperature thing and the touch thing was very new to me, given I had a very minimal experience cooking with meat beforehand.
So tell us a little bit. I want to learn from you. So you're saying the touch thing, and when I cook, I don't touch with my finger. Mm-hmm. So what are you seeking for using your touch senses, right? Are you seeking for heat? Are you seeking for toughness? Tell us a little bit about that so we can learn from you.
Yeah, so it's really fun of it. So with chefs in restaurants, they go by touch. went to determine if something's cooked or not. And how I learned was actually with my fingers. So if you pretend that this part of your hand is a steak, so if you touch it right now, it feels pretty, it bounces back. It feels kind of gushy. This would be rare. And then if you put, I know that it goes from here to here. So if you push your first finger, your index finger down, that's mid-rare. And then you keep going, your finger or this part of your hand gets tougher and tougher. And so it just goes from rare all the way to well done. And so that's how I knew. I would touch my finger and then I would touch the steak. And then that's how I would figure out if it was cooked or not. So that's like a little hack.
I love it.
Yeah. Also, you can just practice at home. You can, what the technique that we would do is we would pan sear on a pan with butter and garlic and a little bit of rosemary and thyme. Then you put it in the oven for a couple of minutes so it can actually cook on the inside.
Yeah.
And then just like if you just buy a bunch of cheap steaks and practice, and that's how you can learn touch, and that's how it gets really, really simple. So that's what I would do. I would get a bunch of steaks, I'd cook them. My dad would love this, by the way. And then I would touch them and be like, okay, that's rare. And then I would cut into it, and it would be kind of like a quiz, like a pop quiz.
Yeah.
So it's all about practice. But this was a really good one that I used that helped a lot.
Well, we just learned something from you, Chef Emily. I think that's awesome. So make sure you guys let us know in the comments if you guys have tried that before, or when you guys do, let us know. So I want to go back to the first elimination that happened on the show. Okay, so we're talking about your dishes and your challenges and all that stuff. But now I want to talk about your feeling during the first elimination. I'm pretty sure you were like, okay, I was here. Am I leaving? Am I not? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was very, very scary. It was the second day. So I don't think anybody got eliminated the first day, which was awesome. The second day was a challenge. So it was an individual challenge. And we had to cook with we had a choice of 5 different proteins. And we had to cook, we just had to make what we thought would be good with the protein and with the produce that they placed together for us. And so I remember everybody made something, and we were responsible for tasting all of the dishes that everybody made and decided who were the top 3 dishes for him to judge. And so we chose the top 3 dishes. Mine was not a top 3 dish. And Chef Ramsay chose who the winner was. And there was a boy winner, and then there was a girl winner. And the girl, or each winner, had the task of choosing who the bottom 3 were of the dishes. And of course, the vegetarian chef is chosen as the bottom 3. I think I want to remake this, but of course a vegan version, because I think it was so cool of a concept. But of course, I needed to cook my chicken a little better. It was like a Asian-inspired chicken. It was a gochujang, which is like Korean paste. And it was a fried chicken. But it was this huge chicken, and I think I fried it for too long, so it just looked a little weird. But yeah, so I was voted bottom 3, and the person who had the worst dish was going to be eliminated, and I just found that out. And so that was just so nerve-wracking. I had all of these mixed feelings. I was very grateful that Chef Ramsay got to taste my dish because he tasted all the bottom 3. But I also was like, oh shit, like, sorry, oh, dang it, I have to now have a chance of going home. And so I remember he tasted it, and he said to me something like, oh, Emily, you're definitely not going home. Like, it's very crispy. And so that was the first facing I had with the possibility of going home. So after that, I was like, all right, you got to step it up. I never want to be in the bottom again.
Yeah.
It was a very big wake-up call of knowing that I had to really pay attention to learning how to cook animal protein correctly.
Yeah.
After that, it was pretty smooth sailing until the black jacket. So thank goodness I picked up and I learned quickly. But I remember Ava Flava was the first person to go home for undercooked salmon. So it's sad to watch somebody go home too that you just meet, because we had only been with each other for 2 days and people were already starting to go home.
Yeah.
So it's really emotional. It's a lot of feelings. hard to see people get eliminated.
Yeah, for sure. And now, is that feeling, that fear or that, oh my gosh, am I in the bottom three? Is that something you face every elimination, every week?
Only if you perform poorly. So if you, at the end of the night, there are two kitchens and one will win and one will lose, or both will win or both will lose. It's up to him. And the winning team is pretty much safe. So nobody's going home in that team. But if you're on a losing team, then your team votes the bottom two. And that's when you go up and you fight for your life and you tell him why you shouldn't go home. And so that's scary. But you feel the feelings of others. It's very emotionally charged there. So it's a big emotional roller coaster, especially when you start seeing friends go home, because you gain a really, really close bond with these people. And so to start seeing them going home one by one is really sad. I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah. And so now I want to talk a little bit about, you are a plant-based cook, right? You're telling us about experiences where you're cooking with meat, which was challenging, right? Figuring it out and trying to, learn everything. Did you have to try, the protein base that was selected, even though you are a vegan chef that has a vegan diet? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this was filmed 2 years ago. So I had only been in my plant-based journey for 2 years. I would still have some times where I would eat meat. Not so much anymore. It's a journey for everybody. It's different for everybody, but it wasn't forced for us. There's another plant-based chef on the show. So it wasn't forced for us to try the meat, but we had the option to. And so I took the option to taste it when I was cooking for Chef Ramsay, just because I wanted to make sure it was the best it could possibly be. Of course, I spit it out afterwards, but that was just me. I would taste it, I would chew it, I would make sure it was good, spit it out. But that was just something that I had to face, and I had to decide if I was going to do that before the show, because of course, it was a moral part. Being a plant-based is part of it for me is moral reasons, ethical reasons. And so I made the decision to do that then so I could have an awesome message later.
Yeah.
And, it's something that a lot of people, it's normalized still. So I think that the vegan community had a problem with us doing that. I know the other vegan chef, Josie, she didn't try the food, but there was a little bit of a backlash for me trying the food. But I think that with eating, deciding what your diet is, I think it's a very personal choice for everybody. And you shouldn't judge what anybody else is going to do. So I took that to heart, and I just decided, okay, I'm going to try it for now. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to let anybody else judge what I'm doing, because that was my choice. And it worked out, and it was great because it was a learning experience. And I always say it was like another culinary school.
Yeah. It's crazy because, chefs have to use a lot of their senses, right? And if you are not almost trying the food or just for flavor, I commend you for trying it for flavor and then spitting it out. So it was a choice, right? But it was something that you wanted to see how your product came out and on this competition. So I think that also speaks volumes, because sometimes you're using your sense, the touch, the smell. And if you're missing one, you could be missing out and maybe not progress as far in the competition as you'd like. So I think that's also something really good that you utilized it, but you didn't execute it, right? You didn't eat it. You didn't commit to that. So I think that's also good. So tell us, I want to hear a little bit more of your perception about the judges. You besides Chef Ramsay, you did have some guest judges at times. And I don't know, what was your perception? Were they intimidating? Were they nice? Were you scared, fearful? Tell us a little bit about that, which determined whether you were going to stay or whether you were going to go.
Yeah, there were a couple guest judges who came on during challenges. They came out, they tried our food, and they left. So we never really got to know them that well. But they're very well-known judges. Michael Cimarosti, and then there's another one. Oh, his name is escaping me right now, but he's I think he's going to be a judge for Chef Ramsay's new show, Next Level Chef. So just like really awesome, talented chefs that you could learn from. And so hearing their feedback was amazing. Nobody's more intimidating than Chef Ramsay though. So I always tell myself if I had to face Chef Ramsay, then all of these other people, I shouldn't be intimidated by. But we also had 2 sous chefs who would help us. So Gordon Ramsay kind of floats in when he wants to and teaches us when he wants to, but he's not there all the time. So our main chefs who taught us the menu and helped us with challenges and stuff were Chef Christina Wilson and Chef Jason Santos. And so Chef Christina was a past winner and Chef Jay was a runner-up. I don't know which seasons, but they're both amazing. And so they're kind of like our co-captains, and then Chef was our captain. So it was cool to learn from all of those amazing people.
Wow. So your experience is right now at its top notch looking. You're going to be around other chefs that you're going to keep learning. But what a great way to start your chapter. This is amazing. So, we come now to the part where elimination happens, right? And this episode aired on August 20th. So for those of you guys that are watching right now, I want us all to take a look at this elimination together so that we can talk a little bit more about your experience here. So let's take a look.
Receiving a black jacket is Emily. Young lady, come over, please. Let me tell you something. You've been one of the best learners in this competition. And I don't know if I've ever met a chef with a more positive, stunning outlook than you have on a daily basis. There's something infectious about your energy that you bring to light every day. You have a very wise head on your shoulders.
Thank you, Chef.
And inside, there's this little genius that's just about to start emerging. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
This was such an amazing experience.
Oh dear. You're going out on a high.
Yes,
Don't you
Chef.
dare forget that,
Yes,
okay?
Chef. Yes, Chef.
I'm gonna have to ask for your jacket, young lady.
Yes, Chef.
Well done.
Thank you, Chef.
Head up,
Thank
okay?
you. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
I really did want that black jacket. That is a disappointment. But this experience has just meant the world to me. I will remember this for the rest of my life. I think my future is so bright that I don't need that black jacket. I'm gonna do something worthwhile of my own.
Wow, what a episode. And look, that was just a snippet, Emily. That wasn't even the full video or episode, that aired. The last one that you got eliminated on it was August 30th. So look, there was so much emotion in that little clip. I mean, I know you were just filled with tears. I was right there with you when I watched this clip for the first time, in tears. Like, I was right there with you. So walk us through this day. Walk us through this episode and when you were competing that led up to this. We want to feel everything that you felt at that moment.
Yeah, it was the most emotional day out of all of the days in Hell's Kitchen. And you can tell because I think I break out into tears a lot, probably multiple times in this episode. But it was Black Jacket. So we're competing for the top 5. Top 5 get swanky new jackets. And it's an elite club that a lot of chefs can't say that they're in. So it was a big accomplishment if you were to get a black jacket. And at this point, the competition is really, really heating up, and everybody who's left is amazingly talented. And the competition is just getting harder and harder. So we had 3 challenges, and each challenge, 2 people would win a black jacket based on their performance of what they presented to Chef Ramsay. So the first one I remember was we did like a jackpot thing. We played jackpot, or we played slots, and it showed us which ingredients we would cook with. And so that was the first round of competition. So as you can imagine, doing 3 back-to-back 45-minute cooking competitions is just a lot. And
Yes.
so the first one, I believe Trent and Bryn got the black jackets, which was awesome. You know, still on a high, ready to fight. The second one, however, was Chef Ramsay told us we were cooking with bluefin tuna. I had never cooked with tuna before, except for making sushi. And so I remember him saying, don't make ceviche, don't make ceviche. And I was like, well, this is sushi, it's not ceviche. And so I decided, my mind was just very, very exhausted. I think at this point was when everybody hits their point, right? And I think my point when I was feeling fatigued. So I couldn't think of anything else. So I made sushi. Of course, the sushi falls apart. It does not hold. And that's the first time that I presented something to Chef Ramsay that I wasn't proud of. And so that was the first emotional moment of just having this dream of getting to this top 5, you know, place, this amazing honor, and just getting so close. And so by the last competition, there was only 3 chefs left. It was Antonio, Steve, and I. And right before we cooked, they showed us videos from our families. So, of course, I don't know if that was to motivate us or to get us to cry in front of camera. But it was really, really beautiful. My family said such amazing words to me. And just to be able to see them after a month of not seeing them was just incredible. So I was already emotional at the fact of mess up sushi, seeing my family. But I knew that it was already such an amazing place that I ended up of being, you know, plant-based chef, unexperienced, but ready to fight. And so I kind of made peace with myself at that point, where no matter how I do, as long as I try my best and I do it for my family and I do it for any other men and women who have ever struggled with body image issues, eating disorders, any plant-based eaters out there, just do it for them. And I ended up making one of the best dishes. I'm getting emotional talking about it because it's just tapping back into that.
Yeah.
I ended up making one of the best, most meaningful dishes that I made at that point in my life. So having him being able to try that and really taste my passion for what I'm doing in my life was just, I could not hold back tears. And so it was a tough decision for him to make. I remember he had to walk off, do like his little pacing that he does, came back and just said the most amazing words that I could have ever hoped for that he would say to me as for a send off. And I remember there's a part of the show that I think they aired where I said, like, I hope if I get eliminated that Chef Ramsay hugs me.
Aww.
That's what I wanted. You know, I just wanted that connection with him and I wanted that mentorship. And there's a moment off camera where he tells me that his door is always open at the end of all of this. And just to be able to prove myself to him was way more meaningful than getting that black jacket. So it was a perfect end to my journey. And of course, I believe that it was meant for a reason, because the people who moved on were just amazing and they did so great in all the challenges moving forward. So I was sad that my journey was over, but I was very happy with how it ended, for sure.
Yeah. And I love at the end how Chef Ramsay really connected with you. I just felt this by watching it. He connected, he gave you good feedback and positive reinforcement. And I think that's what it's about too, to kind of go into the next level, which leads me to my next question. You know, as one door closes, another one opens. So tell us what you're currently doing and what aspirations you currently are working on right now.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. During the pandemic, you know, we all had to pivot. So I found a new passion for recipe development and food media. So I'm really excited to have created a product with Nature's Eats, which is a nut flour and nut company based in Boerne, Texas. And so actually I have my flour right here. So we developed this flour and it's awesome because it's gluten-free and it's almond flour based and it's a mix. So if you're a baker and you don't want to bake with all-purpose flour, if you want to bake gluten-free, this is a really awesome option. And I've been working with them. That's been really fun, being able to be creative. And I also have a YouTube series called The Self-Help Chef, which is a combination of my passions, which is mental, physical, and spiritual health and plant-based cooking. And we get guests on who are experts in their field, and we cook together, and I get to listen to their story and their passions. For example, we had a yoga instructor on our first episode who talked to us about meditation, which is like totally up our alley. So we love that. And so we're about to start our next season. And Maddie, I think you'd be a really good guest to have on.
Would love to be on your show.
We can talk about dancing, because I know you're a dancer too.
Yeah, that would be super awesome.
Awesome. We'll talk about it. But we're starting season 2 soon, and it's just been so fun to film, and hopefully it's helpful for people who are either wanting to go into plant-based eating or just eat a little bit more vegetables, or people who are needing help in the mental health or the physical health aspect. Just holistic goodness for people to watch. So I've been really enjoying that.
Yeah, and we'll load the information of your channel on the comment section, also on the screen. So make sure you guys go like it, subscribe, all of that. The more support that we can give each other, the more that we can do bigger and better things for our community. So look, Emily, you ultimately have a whole life ahead of you. There's so much that you still have to accomplish, want to accomplish, can do all that good stuff. So what kind of impact do you want to have in today's world? What plans in the future do you have that you still want to achieve?
That's such a good question. I think the main thing that I want to be able to do is help others. And if there's any way that I can do that in my field, is I'm going to try to do it. And so the main thing that I'm passionate about is helping young women overcome their issues with body image, eating disorders, just self-confidence in general. I think it's really, really hard for young people in this world right now with all of the comparison with social media and, the influence of others on what others may be promoting or others may be, which can be negative things. Mm-hmm. And just to have that support and that reassurance that it's going to be okay and you're going to find your niche and you're going to find your passion, I think that's really, really speaks out to me. And of course, spreading veggie love and spreading the awareness of plant-based eating, and that it can be fun and it can be delicious, and you don't have to cut out everything else that you're eating. You just need to add in more fun vegetables. And I think with showing that with my social media, with YouTube, and just in any ways that I can, in any large platforms or small ones, as anything that I can do to just speak to one person is what keeps me going.
Yeah, and I love it. Look, you're right. It'd be having, aspiring things to do, like something like having an eating disorder or body shaming. If you are someone out there that has experienced that, we are going to be talking to you directly here in a moment. If you are someone that is doing it, body shaming, or are, motivating someone to have an eating disorder, I think it's very important that we reflect so that we can have more of a positive world around us. So Emily, I'd like to ask you a very deep question. What advice would you give those that may be watching right now, who have suffered from an eating disorder, some type of body shame, some type of confidence within themselves, whether it's image, physical, anything like that? What advice would you give those that are watching that could help them get through this?
I think the first thing that you should always know is recovery is possible. And that doesn't mean recovery from just an eating disorder, recovery from your negative ways of thinking, recovery from feeling isolated, feeling not good enough. You can see another side, and I did. It takes community and it takes work on yourself. And so I think just finding the people that can really listen to you, whether that be family, friends, therapy, I think that's a really, really important thing. If there's ways that you can talk to somebody who's non-biased, really lean on people and be open, be vulnerable, because odds are somebody just next to you is experiencing the same thing. And knowing that I wasn't alone was probably the biggest thing that helped me and helped me keep going, because it is hard. If you're in that negative headspace, it's hard to get out of. and just to know that you're not alone. And there are so many people struggling with the same thing, and we got you. And if anybody needs any sort of pulse to professional help, please reach out. I have a lot of people who are experienced in the eating disorder field and options that you can take. And if it has to do with something else, I know that therapy is really accessible now, which is awesome. And just leaning on each other and just believing in yourself, and don't give up hope, because hope is always going to be there.
Yeah, I think that's great. And look, I think it's great that you're saying to uncover certain things about yourself. But I would say also one of the main things that you mentioned is just not being ashamed of this, right? There is a whole community that we are going to grab each other by the hands very, very tightly, and let's get through the finish line together. Like you said, a community. I think that's super important. And that also leads to this next point. That community can also look different. It can also be aspiring chefs. So what advice would you give those that are watching right now that look up to you in what you've already accomplished as a young gun? So what advice would you give of any aspiring chefs?
I think the main thing that helped me, especially competing in a show that was so intimidating, was just never let self-doubt creep in, because that is a big one that can ruin you being able to be 100% yourself. Mm-hmm. And the other one is being able to be yourself and being able to be your true self, because I was not myself for a long, long time. And that's when I did not know where my passion was. That's when I didn't know that I could help other people. And the moment I found out that I could be myself and I could be open and vulnerable and be able to talk about my issues was when I got Hell's Kitchen, was when I was able to cook plant-based foods for people and being able to talk on larger platforms. So just be confident in your ability, and also don't be afraid to put yourself in environments that are intimidating and where others are better than you, because that's also a big one. There are so many people who were better than me on that show, and I ended up being the top 7 just because I believed in myself. So put yourself in those uncomfortable situations, because it helps you learn, and you could perform better than you think.
Yeah, it pushes you, right? Like, that push you probably would have never gotten if you didn't put yourself in that uncomfortable situation or, type of competition, not situation. So I think that is great. Emily, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Chef Emily from Hell's Kitchen, I think it's been such an honor to have you. And I want to thank you for sharing not only your story, your experience, and also what your future has in store for you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an awesome conversation, and thank you for allowing me to talk on your show, and it was great chatting.
Yes, we look forward to having you again, and maybe you can cook something for us live.
Oh, I'd be so down. Let's do it. I have some ideas. I'm excited.
Nice. Well, thank you again, Emily. And for those of you guys that are watching, this is inspiring to have someone fulfill their dreams after another dream was, closed. So I think it's super important, but the most important part of this is being confident with yourself. Don't feel like you're alone. Eating disorders or body shaming is something very important, and it is happening in our society. So I want you guys to gather the pieces, get and reach out to certain community members that can help, and finding that passion like Emily did on cooking and finding something that restored her hope. I think that is super important. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I also want to thank you guys for sharing the show. The more you share it, the more lives we get to touch as well. So thank you for tuning in to Talk to Me Tuesday on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Mari B.